April 2015, we leave London Heathrow and fly to Seattle on the West Coast, USA. This vibrant city is one of the most densely populated areas in the whole of the USA. The main railway line to the docks runs through the middle of town, and you can see these huge 3-engine trains with over 100 rail cars chugging through the centre of town. Sometimes they'll take as much as 15 minutes to pass. This crazy busker competes with the traffic and the trains. We stayed at the very comfortable Water's Edge Hotel, and from our window you could see the snow cap of Mount Rainier. They had warm gas fires and cuddly teddy bears who seemed to get everywhere. But their major claim to fame is that the Beatles stayed there during their 1964 tour. Say that something. I wanna hold your hand. The Beatles' visit was best remembered because of their habit of fishing from their bedroom windows. As well as its spectacular views and sunsets, Seattle has a tall tower, and beneath it is a glass museum, which strangely enough was more interesting than it sounded. We next visited the Chittenden Locks on the inland waterways, where the floating homes made famous in the movie Sleepless in Seattle. Interestingly, some of these floating homes actually have basements. One of the highlights of my trip was a visit to the Boeing factory at Everett. The assembly building is the biggest building in the world by volume. It's absolutely massive. They employ 41,000 staff at this site. This moving assembly line creeps along at 1.8 inches a minute and produces a completed Dreamliner every 17 days. As they seemed very busy, we wondered if we should offer to give them a lift in with one of their engines. But we have no time to spare, as we must begin our cruise around the Puget Sound. First, we find our ship, the American Spirit, and set sail for a new adventure. Our first stop is the small town of Anacortes, where an artist called Bill Mitchell painted about 150 different paintings on the walls of the town. This pretty little town has many other interesting features, including an old steam paddle boat that was one of the original snag boats, whose job it was to lift all the floating trees and snags out of the river. We next visited a tulip farm. It was massive. I thought they only existed in Holland, but apparently not. We next arrived in Friday Harbour, which is a busy marina with an interesting mixture of boats. A wild seal has taken up residence in the harbour. They call her Popeye because she's got one damaged eye. Apparently she lives there all year round. The name of the vessel that empties the boat's septic tanks appealed to me. Our peace was occasionally shattered by the comings and goings of float planes. Our trip continues through beautiful scenery with sightings of seals and killer whales. Our next stop was Port Angeles, where we were given a guided tour by some charming ladies of the local historic society. These bald-headed eagles watched us leave as we sailed past the drilling rig towards Port Townsend, where we visited Crescent Lake. Leaving our cruise, we now catch the ferry and make our way to Vancouver Island, where we visit the beautiful Puget Gardens. Moving right along, we drive across Vancouver Island towards Tofino and pass through some of the most beautiful rugged wooded country. Some of these trees are absolutely massive, as much as 9 meters round and over 70 meters tall. Some of these trees. Tofino is on the far west coast, where the wild Pacific Ocean crashes onto the beaches. But the purpose of this trip is to search for wildlife, and we have plenty to choose from. Both bear and river otter are quite common in this area. As we watch from the safe distance of a boat, I will name this bear Puget. Bear's got to do what a bear's got to do. Now this poor river otter is having a hard time keeping his fish away from a young bald eagle. At last they come to some sort of compromise. Eventually we end our trip in Vancouver City, where I visit my old favourite steam clock. This ingenious contraption runs on a small Briggs & Stratton steam engine powered from the waste heat from the city's hot water system. The engine drives a chain that lifts a series of ball bearings, and the fall from the ball bearings gives power to the pendulum that keeps the clock running. Busy Vancouver City is a bit much of a tourist destination for me, so I think it's time we made our way home and started planning our next adventure.